Hi everyone, welcome to our weekly Q&A session, and today it is my pleasure to welcome here our coach Chris. So hi Chris, how are you today?
Hey, Veronika, how's it going? Pretty good, pretty good. Thanks for having me on the channel.
Yeah, absolutely, anytime. And before we start today's Q&A, Chris mentioned that there is quite a strong storm in the area. So
Yeah,
for anybody listening, if you see Chris disappearing, then it just electricity goes out.
yeah. Hopefully not.
Yeah, hopefully not. And right, we have the first question that we got already on YouTube, and this is from Super Joker. So, and this is a really interesting question. I like this one a lot. And he's asking, first of all, hi, how are you? You're great, thank you. Great to be here. I've been a fan of Sleep Coach School since 2022. Thank you. I think it's awesome that you guys have helped so many people. Thank you so much. And I have had this habit where I intentionally trick my brain into sleep by thinking of little adventures. For example, I'm a Bigfoot in my cave and it's raining, or I'm in a rainy pirate ship. Is this a sleep before that backfires? I've been able to not do it at bed, but when I don't sleep, there is struggle. I think, I know it's an effort, but if I do it, at least I'll get a few hours. So, do you guys think that if I stop this habit entirely, then will I get better overall, less streaks of bad days, an improvement in sleep confidence without doing it anymore? There is like more into this question, but I read it all, and we can like later on get it down to pieces. So, what are your immediate thoughts, Chris, when you just read this message?
Yeah, whenever I'm working with somebody who's struggling with insomnia and we're covering sleep efforts, and they have this question in particular, is this thing that I'm doing a sleep effort? I always ask them, if you really want to know if it's a sleep effort or not, try removing it and see what happens. See how you feel emotionally.
Mm.
Did anything change? Did anything not? Are you feeling more hyper aroused, more anxious? And so it seems to be that he already tried to sleep without sort of imagining these stories or visuals in his head, and he does experience some more hyper arousal and of course less sleep when he removes those things. So I mean, I think if it's something that you're doing with the expectation of sleep coming easier, or maybe making it less easy to be with the anxiety in those moments, then it is an effort, right? And I think that anytime that we're making any kind of effort to try to escape being awake at night or try to escape uncomfortable emotions like anxiety, then it can sort of keep us in this self-perpetuating loop, if you will. I think his question was, if I remove this, sort of,
Mhm.
routine that I have established, will I get better overall? That's a good question, and I think that the answer is yes. I think that that's one area that you can work on that can eventually help you to break further free from this narrative that we call insomnia. You don't have to do it all at once. You don't have to do it immediately. There's a reason why things happen the way they do when we remove sleep efforts, because when we've been doing something to help us move away from wakefulness, then it's natural that our brain is going to over monitor that process, right? We're removing something that kept us safe from this danger, which is being awake at night. Knowing that in itself is very helpful, right? Because when we understand that and we're aware of it, then we're less likely to scratch our head and try to figure out why this is happening, right? So we can meet that with awareness. Oh, I'm just a little more hyper aroused because I removed, this thing. I would also say that I think that you could also recover from insomnia and still do your, imagination exercises, if that's what we want to call them. I think that if you can meet that with further awareness, understanding that really what's helping you sleep is not the fact that you're imagining, that you're Bigfoot or whatever it is. It's more the fact that you are doing something that is helping you think less about trying to sleep.
Mhm.
So, I mean, if you can look at it from that perspective, then that can be helpful. And of course, understanding that what's really putting you to sleep is your own body's natural sleep drive. It's not the fact that you're imagining that you're someone else in some other, um, sort of like alternate world or whatever. I think
Mm,
that if you can keep reminding yourself that, then eventually you'll probably find that you're maybe still using these imagination exercises, but with the awareness that they're not really helping you sleep. So you're just
mm,
doing it more for the sake of doing it because it resonates with you and it helps you feel a little more comfortable with, this
yeah,
space that we find ourselves in before falling asleep.
mm.
So there
Yeah,
really is like there's no like right way to do it. Like, do I
yeah.
remove it? Should I not? I mean, it's really about your intention and meeting it with more awareness. What do you think, Veronica?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And I really love how you say, like, you don't have to remove it because I think for this person, he's like big imagination and he's using it in his favor in a way that makes him comfortable, makes him feel safe.
Right.
And even like when you like show your brain, like, hey, I feel anxious, I'm awake here, but I still can do something nice for me, even if it is a form of of some visualization. Then why not? You don't have to remove this completely. But when these sleep efforts usually backfire when we do them with this, like when we're literally white knuckling on doing this in order to sleep. This is when it's like, oh, I have to first visualize and then I will sleep, right? I mean, we all had these like 100% golden sleep effort that would always make up a sleep until it didn't make us sleep, right?
Sure. Sure.
So, so just seeing that, like again, you mentioned that it's our own body that is making us sleep, and when this is helping you to chase sleep a little bit less, to think about sleep a little bit less, to give space to things that are meaningful for you, that are interesting for you, more interesting than all over again the sleep topic, then why not just use it? You don't have to cut this immediately right now. It's just, if you enjoy it, just do enjoy it, right? Just don't expect the immediate result of sleep because, like I mentioned, this is when it backfires. So,
Well said.
the first question answered. Thank you, Chris. And now we have another question from Sagari. So, hi, Sagari, Aurora. How can I set up a good sleep routine in the recovery journey? So that's a good question, and it implies to me that you might be a beginner on the Sleep School channel. So, what are your thoughts, Chris, on having a good sleep routine?
I would say, for the most part, trying to have a good sleep routine for the sole intention of trying to produce more sleep is just going to create more pressure around
Mhm.
insomnia recovery. And essentially, you might find that you're sleeping less. Um, I, I, I think a routine could be helpful in terms of helping us feel a little more comfortable and safe when we otherwise don't. But as far as like thinking that we have to create the perfect conditions in order for sleep to happen, that's false. If anything, that's just going to make things even worse for us. And it does for many of us. It did for me as well. I like a good sort of wind down routine just for the sake of regulating my nervous system and sort of decompressing from the day's stress. That could be helpful as well. But do it because you want to do it, as an act of self-care. If it feels good for you and it's nice and relaxing to do something like that in the evening, then go for it. I think there's nothing wrong with sleep routines per se.
Mhm.
Where we can sort of fall into a pitfall is when we do it with the intention, again, of trying to make sleep happen. It becomes a sleep effort, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And nowadays it's very modern, these biohacking and sleep hacking,
Right.
which like we can like read like what everything is good for our sleep, and we should do so many steps before sleep even can happen. But when we think about it, even before doing all these things, even knowing like we were able to sleep like since our birth, right? It is our sleep is our birthright. It is a natural process, and it happens regardless whether we do like 8 step sleep routine or not. And like again, like you mentioned, it's if you feel like you want to do this because you feel like it's comfortable for you, it regulates your nervous system from a stressful day, you want to wind down a little bit, why not? We all want to just slow down before going to bed,
Right.
not like really running and just jump into bed and waiting for sleep to happen. Right, so it's not about setting up a sleep routine, it's about making ourselves comfortable before just resting.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned the biohacking community. I think that's so important too, because
Mhm.
as far as routines go, if we're talking strictly within the context of like trying to optimize sleep, television isn't allowed. You can't do anything that's too stimulating because it's apparently going to, interfere with sleep. But for some people, that is their routine. It's like
Mhm.
watching television,
Yes.
with their
Yeah.
spouse and their children,
Yeah.
and their sleep isn't affected. So I think that's really important to throw that in there, that if you are going to have a routine, just be mindful of like mainstream recommendations, because that might not resonate with you. And again, it might create more pressure.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And then the question that we got from Annie. So, hi, Annie. How are you today? I hope you deal with an how do you deal with an earworm that annoys you so much at night when you want to fall asleep? For anybody who might not know, an earworm is like a piece of music or a sentence that is just replaying over and over in your mind. So, have you experienced it, Chris? And what are your thoughts on earworms?
I did. I think the the worst one I had probably lasted like 2 weeks.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
and granted, I mean, it was a song that I genuinely loved, but I didn't, I wasn't too fond of it at the end of the 2 weeks. I was very tired.
I can imagine.
It was quite unsettling for me. I wasn't. I thought I was losing my mind. I wasn't sure why that was happening. It didn't seem normal to me. I understand now that I was very dysregulated. I was dealing with a lot of anxiety, a lot of hyperarousal, and I think that when we're hyperaroused, our brain can not just latch on to the idea of wakefulness being a threat, but it can start scanning your environment,
Mhm.
looking for all kinds of threats, right? And it might even present that in a way of a song that you enjoy. Um, I think understanding that that's just a symptom of uh, a place in your nervous system that's trying to keep you safe. You're more likely to meet it with maybe less frustration and annoyance and a little bit more acceptance, because you know that it is sort of well intentioned. Might not make it easier to accept, but it could, right? I
Mhm.
would treat an earworm the same way that I would treat any uncomfortable sort of manifestation of anxiety, whether it's an intrusive thought or a racing heart. As uncomfortable as it is to try to coexist with it, it's imperative that we try to find some acceptance with it, because the more we try to resist it, the more that we try to push these things away, the more they intensify. Your brain thinks it's safe. Your brain wants you to acknowledge it, and that's really all you have to do, is just acknowledge it. You don't have to agree with it. You don't have to admit that you're okay with it, or that you believe the thought, or that you're okay with the same song playing over and over again. It's just meeting it with a little more acceptance, understanding that it's just a symptom of a place in your mind that thinks that things right now aren't necessarily safe, and it's trying to warn you of something. So, as counterintuitive and difficult as it is, um, just try to be mindful as best as you can, of the earworm, whatever it may be.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember myself like I for a quite long period of time I even stopped listening to music or just listening to radio when I drove a car because always there would be a piece of music that would stuck in my head and would replay in my mind at night. And I remember like when I was kind of like recovering, going out of hyperarousal, I could find, oh, I can finally play some music. It was so strange, but for me the way was kind of like limiting listening to the music. I mean, it's not an option for everyone, and it was, maybe it's not also the way it's helpful, of course, always just to show your brain that we are comfortable with things, that we are okay. But for me at that time it was easier just to limit it for a while, and it actually made me feel much okay, much safer with this, because I really, just like you said, I felt like I'm going crazy with just one piece of song just replaying in my mind over and over again. It was so exhausting.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
you you do feel like you're going crazy because you don't really you don't have any control over it,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And then you feel like you don't have control over anything in your life, but it's important to understand that
Exactly.
you do, right? And it's about reorienting and, looking to see what we do have control over. And essentially what that is how we respond to whatever's
Mm.
uncomfortable in our lives. In this case, it's the earworm. Yeah, just being mindful of it. There's that song again, right? Just acknowledge it and then just
Yeah.
quickly try to shift back into the present
Yeah.
moment. And at first, it seems like work. It seems like effort. You're constantly
Mhm.
noticing this thing and then shifting.
Right.
Um, the more you do that, you'll find that the less identified you are with whatever it is that's bothering you. In this case, maybe a song, and then it goes away.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Right. We have a question from uh, Ayman. I haven't been sleeping for 4 days now, and before that, I slept only 1.5 hours and 2 hours for months. I'm really anxious. I also have this meta loop of recovery OCD type, and I am really anxious. My mind is always like, am I accepting correctly? Or these OCD thoughts when I sleep, I just awake, I stress, it's chronic now, and I'm really scared. First of all, I'm really sorry to hear this, Ayman. For how are you feeling? It's really scary. And yeah, Chris, what are your thoughts? How would you support Ayman in his struggle, and especially when I have consecutive nights of not sleeping, which is really exhausting?
Right. Um, yeah. Again, just to reiterate what Veronica said, my heart goes out to you. I've been there before. Veronica's been there before. And this isn't your forever.
Yeah.
It might seem like it, and it could be really hard to see any glimmer of hope. But know that it does get better. Um, you know, right now, I think one of the most important things is to really be mindful of how you're speaking to yourself. I love to talk about self kindness and self compassion because it's so important. Um, and I think that when we're in these moments where it feels like, you know, we're in that sandstorm, right? Like we understand all the teachings, we've contextualized everything, but we still find ourselves in this state of bewilderment, frustration, and anxiety.
Mm,
It's very natural to look inwards and maybe start to critique ourselves. What's going on? Why am I not getting this? Why is recovery taking so slow for me?
mm,
So be mindful of whatever voice of judgment is there and really try to offer yourself, you know, the compassion that you would to a friend or a loved one if they were dealing with something, similar to you. So I think that that can really be helpful as well right now. And really ask yourself, what can you do in this moment to help you feel a little more comfortable, a little bit safer? Maybe you are putting too much pressure around recovery. Maybe it's trying to eliminate too many sleep efforts at once. Maybe you're doing things too quickly. Then you might want to re-examine certain areas like that. Maybe we're putting too much pressure on ourselves to maintain a very strict sleep window. If that's the case, if we have to loosen it up a bit and be a little more flexible, that's okay. Are we pushing too much during the day when we're really tired? Are we giving ourselves permission, and allowing ourselves, um, the time and space to be able to just take a breather and sit down and not push too much? Sometimes we become very eager to recover and we want it now, and recovery in itself becomes an effort, right? And we forget to live.
mm,
Um, that's a really important one as well. Like how are you living? Are you just are you just recovering or are you living? Because really, recovery is living. Once you start living your life and you know living a life that's in alignment with the things that matter to you most, doing things that bring you joy, whether or not you're sleeping or not, right?
Mm.
That is, imperative that you do that. That really is at the core of recovery. It's not just like recovering and then waiting for things to get better before you start living again. So I think it's like a multifaceted approach. We have to look at recovery as a whole and kind of dissect it in different areas and see like, okay, what can we include or remove to make this a little bit easier for me in the moment?
Mm.
And I know that was a lot of information.
Yeah,
If you
but
want to simplify that, or if there's anything you want to add, Veronica, I mean, that'd be great.
you said it really wonderfully. It's you know, uh, the recovery, it takes time, and there is no right or wrong way. It's helpful to absorb the information, working with the thoughts and emotion, and when you do all of this, just shift towards living life, regardless of how you sleep. It is really nicely how you said it. And when you feel really overwhelmed, it's very often all what we have learned just goes out of the window.
Right.
So turning to self-care and supporting ourselves is what helps us the most, because then we have then we this doesn't last forever, and then again we have the mental bandwidth to be with the thoughts, to be with the emotions, to be with the wakefulness. But sometimes this is just too much, this is too overwhelming. And that's why turn toward yourself, what you need right now, what your brain, what your mind, what your body needs right now. What kind of support? Is it a walk? Is it a hot cup of tea or coffee? Is it like sitting by the window covered in a blanket? It is having a chat with your friend you haven't spoken to in a long time. So uh, it takes time. Look also into befriending wakefulness, how to spend time at night, not chasing sleep, because this is also a really important part of recovery and kind of like exposing ourselves to our fears. So I hope this was helpful, Ayman. And we have quite a lot of questions today, actually. We'll go through all of them today. But right, we have a question. Mm, okay, a question from Suja Lotus. I'm sorry if I mispronounced. And she's saying, I slept well for a few days, but after having an argument with my mom, I'm again facing the sleep anxiety. How to feel safe and accepted? Waking up after 2 hours and can't fall asleep. How to get out of the loop? So, what do you think, Chris? Like, is it normal to have a kind of like a sleep disturbance after an argument with our beloved family member?
Absolutely. I think that if you're human, that's just part of being a human.
Right.
Whether you're struggling with insomnia or not, and many people find it hard to sort of turn off and rest if emotions are running high. So I think just being aware of that can help us feel a little less unique, right? Which can be very helpful. It helps remove a lot of pressure. Yeah, I think when things are getting easier, it's really easy to assume that we're at this place now where we're never going to struggle again. Our
Mm,
nervous system is just healed, and there's just no more anxiety. But I think that when we're fresh into recovery, our nervous system could sort of be on edge, maybe in a more subtle manner. But it's just there waiting, just making sure that the coast is clear, right? That there's nothing that we need to be specifically worried about. And so I think that there's just maybe a bit of residual fear, conditioned hyperarousal. And when we do have an experience like this one that has absolutely nothing to do with sleep, but it's something that is upsetting, your nervous system is already on edge. It's already sensitized. So it can pick up on that as a threat. And then, of course, we're going to start to naturally wonder, how's this going to affect my sleep now?
mm,
Right. And the first thing that most people want to do is try to fix it. Like you said, when we're in this state of fear, we everything we've learned goes out the window. You know, we kind of go offline, we become a bit irrational again, and we sort of forget how to implement the tools that we've learned before. So it's really important to try to catch that as soon as you can before you fall into like old maladaptive patterns and start
Mhm.
finding yourself struggling again for, you know, a pretty lengthy amount of time. And really, it's just a matter of re-implementing everything that you've learned, which he has. He's stated that he's experienced, you know, some consecutive nights of pretty restful sleep, which indicates to me that he's capable of doing the work. So it's really a matter of considering how you got to that place to begin with and doing it all over again. I know that's the answer that many people don't want to hear, right?
I know.
But it is really a matter of like rinse and repeat. You know, just have to keep reapplying
Mhm.
mindfulness and accepting the parts of all of this that we really don't want to accept. And the quicker we can do that, the quicker we find ourselves back on track.
Yeah, okay. Thank you so much for sharing, Chris. And so let's answer one last question.
Sure.
And so we have a question from Brandon, and he's saying it's a bit longer. So, hi, Brandon. Hey, guys. It's been 4 years basically of me dealing with this. I have absorbed all the main basics teachings of Daniel, but just finding it hard to sleep through the night or more than 5 hours. The loop is the hardest thing for me. Knowing to be kind to myself, doing that, not seeing results, stress, be mad about it, then repeat. It is impacting my ability to also lose stubborn fat on my body. And I live my day to day life totally normal, but every night and morning I am reminded that this one part of me is not where I want to be. So, what are your thoughts, Chris, when somebody seems to struggle with insomnia for such a long time, even after absorbing Daniel's teachings? And I assume that Brandon is going in and out of this like experience, speed bump over these past few years, and it seems never ending. So I think it's in one of the ways would be really helpful to have like this little bit of back and forth to look really closely, because from a few comments in one post, it's really hard to really find what what's to what could be just I don't want to say improved, but what could be changed? What could be like, what else is to there to uncover on the path of recovery? Because I know it's not easy, and it seems so exhausting. But when we are here at such a spot when it feels so never ending, it feels like we hit this kind of like plateau, and it feels like nothing is changing. But still, in the background, the recovery is happening.
Right.
You said it, which is so, so important, Brandon. You don't let insomnia to rule your days. Your day-to-day experience is totally normal, like you mentioned, and this is the most important. Like not to let insomnia control our life, and over time, this this can change, this can improve. And also the question is like, how did you sleep before insomnia, right? Because you know there is some people have this standard go this golden standard of sleeping 8 hours each night, but for many people.
You're on mute.
Okay, I'm sorry. There's just problems. Eventually I
No
will have
worries.
problems, not you, with the storm. And right, I was saying like that the recovery is happening still in the background, even if it is not so obvious. And sometimes we feel like we hit this kind of like plateau, and it seems like nothing is changing. And then we some people have this uh, the only thing we need to do is just to persist in what we've been doing, basically living our everyday life. And when we hit this when we believe that we need these 8 hours every day, then it's going to be hard to reach this standard if in essentially your body doesn't need that. So these are my immediate thoughts. Chris, anything to add to this?
Yeah, I mean, no, you articulated that very well. I don't have too much to add. I agree. I think that it's very nuanced when on the surface it seems like recovery just isn't happening, and I think that all of us have gone through that at some point.
Yeah.
Um, but we really have to like look beneath the surface sometimes and really like you know scour for evidence that we are recovering. It's very easy to define recovery only through sleep, but
Yeah.
we know that recovering from insomnia is much more than that. Are you feeling a little less anxious, even if it's just 10% more than when you first started struggling 5 or 6 years ago? Do you find yourself thinking less about insomnia? For a lot of
Mm.
people, they find that before sleep starts to improve, they're thinking about it less. Maybe they still think about it in the evening, but during the day, for the most part, they don't really think about it. Um, are you living your life, to the best of your ability, despite the fact that you're not quite where you want to be yet? And it seems like he is. So, I mean, that in itself is recovery. I think, again, a lot of people, understandably so, want to be on the other end. They want to,
Yeah.
reach that finish line. And I think that sometimes that in itself could be the thing that's keeping us stuck. I think if we can sort of get rid of this idea of there being a finish line and just, see that really recovery is just living our lives, it makes it easier to not examine recovery so thoroughly, so often, right? We're
Mhm.
constantly like monitoring our progress. I'm not thinking about it anymore. I'm living my life. I'm being kind to myself, but I'm still not sleeping. Why is this still happening? And it's really recovery in itself has become an effort.
Mm.
And I know for many people that seems bizarre, like, well, isn't that the point? Aren't we trying to sleep? Well, yes, but really what we're trying to do is to recondition our brains and lower this hyperarousal response. And as a byproduct of that, of course, sleep comes.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
it's not the ultimate goal. It's really changing our relationship with sleep and with wakefulness at night.
Mm. Mm. Those, just to wrap it up, words from Coach Alina comes to my mind. Don't do it for the recovery, do it for yourself and
Right.
basically for your life, right?
Exactly.
So, okay. Thank you so much for being here today, Coach Chris. Thank you, everybody, for all your wonderful questions. And if you feel like you would benefit from having a back and forth with our wonderful Coach Chris, I will add a link under this video to have a like private session with him. And yeah, thank you so much. I'll be back next time and some other time with Coach Chris. Bye bye. Take
Bye,
care.
everyone.